You have a good job. You're ready to make a deposit. But the real estate agent just throws up their hands, pointing at the computer screen. The system says no. The reason? An error on your credit report that you didn't commit, and you're powerless. You can't talk to the algorithm that just cost you a home. According to the Federal Trade Commission, 1 in 5 Americans has an error on their credit report. That's over 40 million people with a potentially distorted financial portrait. This scenario isn't an accident, it's a symptom of a systemic illness. To understand it, we need to ask two paradoxical questions. Why do Americans with a good credit score often pay more for loans than those with an excellent one? Logic dictates that both groups are reliable. What does the system know that you don't? And how did it come to be that in the wealthiest country in the world, which created the most advanced financial tools for prosperity, the debt burden on ordinary people constantly grows, turning the American dream into a financial nightmare? By the end of this film, you will have 6 keys to this system. We'll break down everything, from the 3-digit number that controls your life to the global casino where your debts are traded. We are going to crack this code. In just 3 minutes, we'll reveal the first mechanism, the 3-digit number that has become your second and perhaps primary passport. How did a number invented in 1989 gain more power over your life than your education, experience, and reputation? Before this, credit assessment was like tailoring a custom suit. The banker knew you personally. The FICO system replaced this with an impersonal size tag. Now, you're not a person, just a size. The idea seemed progressive, a single standard for objective risk assessment, a step towards eliminating bias. But this power was seized by 3 private commercial companies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. In 2017, the Equifax data breach compromised the personal information of 147 million people. And here's the main blow: the burden of proof for any error on your report lies with you. You must prove your innocence to a system that is right by default. But getting a good rating is only half the battle, because then the system employs a psychological trap to ensure you never escape debt. Americans with a good credit score, between 700 and 740, often pay more for auto loans than people with excellent credit. Why does the system punish sufficiently reliable people? Imagine you've achieved a high rating. As a reward, the bank sends you a credit card with a large limit. You feel successful. You believe the system has rewarded you for good behavior. But in 2005, major bank lobbyists pushed through a bankruptcy law that made discharging credit card debt extremely difficult. The fine print in your agreement hides the true cost of the debt. You start using the card and make only minimum payments, as the bank suggests. You thought you were following the rules and maintaining your rating, but you didn't know you had just activated a mathematical bomb embedded in the foundation of every credit card. How can a $500 purchase turn into a $2,000 debt, even if you pay your bills every month? This is the minimum payment trap. At an average interest rate of 21%, 80% of your minimum payment goes towards interest, and only 20% goes to the principal. In 2023, the total credit card debt of Americans exceeded $1.21 trillion. This is not a personal problem, it's a nationwide epidemic. A simple online calculator will show you paying off a $5,000 debt with minimum payments can take over 30 years and cost you 3 times as much. This trap works for small sums, but when it comes to the biggest purchase of your life, a home, the system uses an even more sophisticated weapon. We've covered the first level. The credit score is the gate to the system. The minimum payment trap is the swamp where the system forces millions to get stuck, extracting continuous profit. But these were just pocket debts. Now we will see how the most cherished American dream, owning a home, was turned into a financial weapon of mass destruction. The total value of lost homes during the 2008 crisis is estimated at over $7 trillion. That would be enough to pay off all student debt in the U.S. 4 times over. We are entering a world where your dream of a home has become a chip in Wall Street's global casino, and the stakes in this game are the fates of millions. In 1999, to the applause of financiers, the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed. The barrier that for decades separated your reliable savings from Wall Street's risky games collapsed. Mortgages of ordinary people instantly became raw material for global speculation. Imagine that each mortgage is a stream. Banks collected thousands of such streams, including the dirtiest ones, into one murky river, and then sold tickets to swim in this lake, assuring everyone that the water was crystal clear. They massively issued so-called ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets. They didn't care if the borrower could repay the money. Their only goal was to package and sell this toxic debt as quickly as possible. The system created a debt production line, and when it broke down, the world shuddered. What caused the entire global economy to collapse in 2008? Not just those who defaulted on their mortgages. Take an ordinary family who took out an adjustable-rate mortgage in 2006. The real estate agent promised that home prices would rise forever. They were happy. The American dream had come true. But on Monday, September 15, 2008, when Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy, all channels showed the same thing, employees leaving their office with boxes in hand. At that moment, for millions of families, the bomb embedded in their mortgage exploded. Loan rates skyrocketed, and the value of their homes plummeted. They owed the bank more than their home was now worth. But the bank that issued them the loan had long since sold it. Their debt, packaged into a complex security, now belonged to an anonymous investment fund on the other side of the world. But losing their home was just the beginning. The system had another humiliation in store for them, a ruthless collection machine. How were banks able to evict thousands of people without even having the original documents for their mortgages? The answer? Robo-signing. Low-paid employees mindlessly stamped thousands of foreclosure documents. Some admitted under oath that they signed up to 10,000 such documents a month, spending no more than 30 seconds on each. This led to a wave of illegal property foreclosures. People lost homes due to systemic failures and outright fraud. But the system found an adversary. Elizabeth Warren, during Senate hearings, publicly exposed this scheme, forcing the heads of the largest banks to answer uncomfortable questions. The 2008 crisis exposed the rot in the mortgage system. But at the same time, another, even larger debt bomb was brewing, aimed at the very future of the nation. Think back to 2008. Perhaps you lost your job. Perhaps your neighbors lost their home. How did you personally feel the consequences of that crisis? Knowing about the mechanism of debt sales and robo-signatures, do you think it was a random system glitch or its programmed outcome? While the entire country was recovering from the mortgage collapse, millions of young Americans were falling into another, equally insidious debt trap. While the baby boomer generation was losing their homes, the millennial generation was losing their future, falling into debt servitude even before their first day of work. What debt in the U.S. exceeds credit card and auto loan debt combined, but, unlike gambling debts, is almost impossible to get rid of even through bankruptcy? It's student debt. The system presents it as an investment in the future, but in reality, it's a financial sentence. Today, over 43 million Americans carry this burden, the total amount of which exceeds $1.7 trillion. In 2005, banking lobbyists pushed through a law that made private student loans virtually non-dischargeable. They created an ideal asset, eternal debt. And the largest creditor profiting from the interest on these loans is the United States government. It has the unique right to collect debt without a court order, withholding tax refunds and even a portion of Social Security payments from retirees. This debt is not just a number. It creates an army of debtors on whom the system hones its cruelest methods. How does a prestigious university diploma become not a pass to the middle class, but a lifelong financial sentence? A graduate takes out $100,000, confident it will pay off. They find a job, but their salary barely covers rent, living expenses, and interest payments. At an average rate of 6%, their debt annually generates $6,000 in interest alone. That's $500 a month just to keep the debt from growing. They postpone buying a home, starting a family. The American dream is unattainable not due to laziness, but due to a systemic trap they fell into at 18. They watch their future drain away to pay interest. And when such a person stops paying, the system stops being polite. An automated army, created for one purpose, to collect the debt at any cost, is activated. What happens when you fall behind on payments? Collection agencies step in. They buy defaulted debts for pennies, sometimes 1 cent on the dollar, and then try to collect the full amount. Their arsenal, automated systems making millions of calls a day, and litigation mill law firms churning out thousands of lawsuits. Here we see robo-signing again. Lawyers mass-generate lawsuits, signing documents without verification, leaving the debtor no chance. The collection industry works like a wildfire. A defaulted debt is a spark that banks sell for next to nothing. Collectors are the wind that fans this spark, trying to extract heat from already scorched earth. But this ruthless machine is only the visible part of the iceberg. What happens to your debt in the invisible world of high finance is even more cynical. We've seen 4 key mechanisms. The credit score is the gate. The minimum payment trap is the swamp. Mortgages and student loans are the shackles. Automated collection is the whip. But all these processes, from issuing you a credit card to a collector's call, are merely stages of gathering raw material for Wall Street's main factory. Now we will ascend to the highest, most abstract, and most dangerous level of this system. Next, we will delve into a world where your debt ceases to be yours. It is sliced, mixed, packaged, and sold, turning your specific student loan into part of a global financial game with trillions of dollars at stake. How can one law firm sue 1,000 people in a single day? Justice should work like blood circulation, carefully and precisely. But litigation mill law firms connect a fire hose to the system under immense pressure. They buy written-off debts for 1 to 5 cents on the dollar. Their profit is pure volume mathematics, where an individual approach is unprofitable. These aren't a few fraudsters, but huge publicly traded corporations for whom you are just a line in a database. They use sewer service tactics. A process server discards the summons but reports it as delivered. You fail to appear in a court you didn't know about, and the collector automatically wins the case, gaining the right to withdraw money from your account. This army of bots and lawyers works on the ground. But above them is another level. A world where your debt ceases to be yours. You start receiving dozens of automated calls a day about an old, disputed debt. You try to resolve it, but you get lost in a labyrinth of voice menus or unhelpful operators who only repeat the demand to pay. The pressure mounts, threats of lawsuits, calls to work, a new negative mark on your credit history. You feel shame and isolation. You spend time and money investigating and discover your debt has been resold 5 times. And the current owner has no original documents. But it doesn't matter. The burden of proving your innocence lies with you. Annually, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau receives hundreds of thousands of complaints about collectors. This is the most frequent reason for citizen appeals, surpassing complaints about banks and credit cards. Fighting a collector is fighting a ghost. But the real puppet master pulling the strings is much higher. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act should be your shield. It prohibits calls at night, threats, and deception. It requires them to provide proof of debt upon your request. But for many companies, it's more profitable to systematically violate the law and budget for fines than to comply. A fine for a violation often doesn't exceed $1,000, a drop in the ocean for a multi-billion-dollar industry. Less than 10% of consumers who are sued have legal protection, leading to an automatic loss. However, the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau gave people a centralized tool to fight back, leading to multi-million-dollar fines for the largest agencies. We figured out how debts are created and collected. Now it's time to ascend to the highest floor of this system, into a world where your debt becomes part of a global game. We've descended to the very bottom, into the trenches of the debt war, where people fight robots and soulless legal machines. We've seen 2 levels of the system, visible and invisible. All of this is merely the work of the infantry, gathering resources for the main goal. Above the battlefield is a command center where the generals of the financial world operate not with individual debts, but with entire armies of debts, packaged into complex instruments. Next, we will see what happens to these resources in the world of abstract finance, where the stakes are trillions of dollars, and a loss can cost the global economy. Now we will enter the room where your debt loses your name and becomes part of an invisible system that controls global finance. How did betting on someone else's failure become the most profitable business in the world? The system designed to manage risks spawned the greatest risk in history. This is the 6th element, financial derivatives. Imagine buying fire insurance not for your own home but for your neighbors. This is a credit default swap. Banks claimed they were merely insuring their risks. On paper, it looked responsible. But the notional value of this market exceeded $600 trillion, 6 times the gross product of the entire planet. A casino with infinite stakes, capable of destroying the real economy. And here's the main blow. These policies could be bought on the same house an infinite number of times. Hundreds of companies insured one asset, and it became profitable for all of them for it to burn down. The system created the strongest incentive for collapse. And who paid for this fire shatters all notions of justice. Why did the banks that triggered the collapse receive trillions in aid, while millions of people who lost their homes received nothing? The official answer: they were too big to fail. On October 3, 2008, the TARP program allocated $700 billion taxpayer dollars to rescue the arsonists. This was presented as a necessary evil. But on the streets, there was a different reality. Over 10 million families lost their homes. The anger erupted into the Occupy Wall Street movement. Television showed bankers with multi-million-dollar bonuses and people in tent cities. And here's the fact that breaks everything. Not a single top executive faced criminal charges. The system didn't save the economy, it saved itself, protecting its leaders and shifting the losses onto us. After such a blow, the system should have learned its lessons. Do these risks exist today? The Dodd-Frank Act was passed to strengthen regulation. This looked like a victory. But behind the scenes, bank lobbyists spent billions weakening this law. The risks didn't disappear. They mutated and went into the shadows. Today, a bubble is growing in the corporate debt market known as CLOs, collateralized loan obligations. This is financial sausage. Hundreds of different corporate loans are packaged into it, and no one knows the quality of the mints inside, but it's sold as a prime product. The volume of this market has exceeded $1 trillion, creating a ticking time bomb similar to the mortgage-backed securities of 2008. The system was not fixed. It became smarter. We've gone through all the circles, from a 3-digit number on a report to trillion-dollar stakes in a casino. These are not separate problems, but a single food chain. Your personal debt, mortgage, student loan, credit card balance is not your problem. It's invaluable raw material, fuel for the Wall Street machine. Each of the 6 gears of this machine is designed to extract value from you and transmit it upwards. Now that we've examined every detail, it's time to step back. We will assemble the entire machine and see how your rental denial is directly linked to the risk of a new global collapse. So, the machine is assembled. Let's trace the path of $1. The first element, the credit score, the gate to the system. You are told that a high score is a reward. In reality, it's a lure that draws you into a calm, inviting current. Once you're inside, the second element kicks in, the minimum payment trap, a powerful undertow beneath the surface. At a 21% interest rate, a $1,000 debt that you pay off with minimum payments will stretch for decades and cost you $3,000. The total credit card debt of Americans has already exceeded $1.21 trillion. This is not an accident, but the foundation of the machine, consistently extracting profit. But this is just pocket change. For the real stakes, the system uses your greatest dreams. At the second level, the machine creates large, long-term fuel by exploiting 2 fundamental American dreams. The third element, the mortgage trap, the dream of owning a home. The fourth, student debt, the dream of a future through education. Both dreams require huge loans that turn you into an ideal debtor for decades. Unlike credit cards, these debts are almost impossible to discharge. It is this reliability that makes them prime raw material for Wall Street. While you pay off your mortgage for 30 years, your debt has already been resold hundreds of times on the global market. The total amount of student debt, $1.7 trillion, exceeds credit card and auto loan debt combined. The system has turned your hopes into its fuel. Now the final nodes. How does the machine ensure that fuel flows without interruption? The fifth element, automated collection. These aren't just collectors. This is the ruthless heart of the machine that pumps your monthly payments upward. An army of bots and litigation firms, churning out lawsuits like Linda Green, who signed 10,000 documents a month, ensures a continuous cash flow. And where does it go? To the sixth element, the system's turbocharger, financial derivatives. Wall Street takes this cash flow from your mortgages and student loans and builds a gigantic pyramid of bets on it, creating profit out of thin air, your teeth. Payment is the blood in the capillaries. Wall Street is the brain that takes all the energy. You see the whole scheme, from the 3-digit number on your report to the trillion-dollar stakes in the casino. These are not separate predators. This is a single, perfectly tuned food chain. The feeling of shame about debt, the sense of personal failure, these are not side effects. They are built-in control mechanisms that prevent you from seeing the truth. You are playing a game with rules rigged against you. Realizing this is not a cause for despair. It is your first step to freedom. It is armor. But armor is useless without weapons. The machine seems all-powerful, but it has vulnerabilities. The final part of our investigation is dedicated to how to find and use them against the system's creators. At the beginning, we asked 2 questions. Now you receive the answers, and these are your first tools. Why do Americans with a good rating pay more? Because the system exploits your trust. The bank knows you are reliable enough to pay, but assumes you are not informed enough to demand better terms. And why doesn't this system make you richer? Because it is designed not for your prosperity, but for extracting value from you. Its goal is your dependence. Here is the first element of your arsenal. Knowledge is armor. Stop blindly trusting numbers. Dispute every error on your report, because after the Equifax data breach in 2017, which compromised 147 million people, the burden of proof is on you. Always compare offers and negotiate. Have you ever faced a situation where a bank offered you unfavorable terms? Counting on your lack of awareness? The main resource the debt system takes from you is not money. It's your time. The minimum payment trap, the 30-year mortgage, student loans. At the core of their destructive power is compound interest, which works against you for decades. The system steals your future. Decades spent servicing debt is time you could have spent building your own capital. This is a form of modern slavery, where you work not for yourself, but for the bank. Here is the second tool. Reclaim control over your time. Compound interest is like growing a tree. When you are in debt, you water someone else's forest every day, a forest that casts an ever-growing shadow over you. When you invest, you plant your own seed. Start investing, even small amounts, to turn the power of compound interest in your favor. The system wants you to work for it for 30 years, but just a few years of focused effort can make it work for you. Individual actions will help you survive, but real change is only possible through collective pressure. The system is designed to isolate you, making you feel that debt is a personal shame. This prevents you from seeing the bigger picture. But the system is not invulnerable. The creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau by Elizabeth Warren is direct proof. It emerged as a result of public anger after the 2008 crisis. Since its inception in 2011, the Bureau has forced financial companies to return over $17.5 billion to consumers. Here is the third most powerful tool: your voice. Demand answers from politicians to just 2 questions: how they protect consumers and whose interests they truly represent. We've gained 3 defensive tools. But is merely defending enough? Or is it time to attack the system itself? We've exposed the machine. We understand its logic. We've armed ourselves for defense. Now each of us faces a crucial choice that will determine the future. There are 2 paths. The first is reform. It's based on the belief that the system can be fixed, strengthen regulation, increase transparency, punish the guilty. This is the path of evolution. The second path is a reset. It stems from the conviction that the system is rotten to the core and beyond repair. It demands fundamental changes, from mass student debt forgiveness to a reevaluation of the very concept of credit slavery. This is the path of revolution. We don't provide the answer. You must provide the answer. Write just one word in the comments: reform or reset. Let's see what we truly want. Your word is the beginning of a discussion that can change everything.